Okay, now should someone do a quick introduction, by the way. So sorry, everyone, we forgot to start the recording. This is a KCP community meeting on Thursday, 23rd April. We are discussing the topic of the KCP support policy. And right now we are trying to judge between having the support policy on N-2 and the time-based support policy. So let's continue discussion on that.
MJ, I think you had the word.
No, so like why I even raised the N-2 is for the, not for the mostly like support is easy relatively. The backporting of the security vulnerabilities, that's where the challenges comes in, when you need to start backporting to KCP, after that KCP operator. And if Christoph's topic lands, which is the last one, this will get even more complicated. And like, whatever we agree, time-based, versioning-based, I think we need to just draw a line somewhere, and I'm just looking for that line. And I'm just, like, 9 months is, in my head, the same as N-2, because we should be striving to do releases each and every rebase, each and every 3 months. Yes, sometimes we slip, sometimes we need to do, like, releases in between, but yeah. I don't know. Christoph?
Yeah, regarding Calware, as long as the Kubernetes release is important to our downstream consumers, as the biggest fan of Calware, I think it's not appropriate for KCP yet. I would love to get to a position where it just doesn't matter what kube version it is, because it's all rock solid and we can just do Calware, but I don't think the ecosystem is quite there yet, or maybe never will be, who knows. Other than that, I agree with Simon. If we can have a regular cadence, something like N- or last N releases sounds fine to me. Otherwise, I would prefer Marco's approach of saying, okay, we have like a 6 months support period or something like that. Backporting security fixes, yeah, can be a pain. I don't know how disciplined we were with that. But to be honest, I think for most of the security fixes, we could have actually just said it doesn't affect us. And we were just proactive in updating dependencies anyway. So if it's too painful to backport something, maybe we need to take a deeper look. Does it really affect us? But yeah.
I'm talking about the CVEs we had, not like a dependabot style thingies.
Yeah, but most of the CVEs, like I updated Speedy Stream recently. I don't know if we're using that or ever been really affected.
No, not the ones, not those ones. The ones which we actually generated in our code base.
Ah, those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those were my 3 cents, I guess. Marco, back to you.
Yeah, I would comment from my experience that stable releases that everyone is talking is not reachable to us as KCP project. You require very strong release machinery. You need to have things like code freeze. You need to have things like very well planned team and schedule ahead. And with us being a small project, sometimes we are going to benefit with small feature releases to get something out to users as soon as possible. I don't think stable releases is something that we have capacity and that we should do. Like, we shouldn't go that way. It's complicated. That's one thing. The other thing that I wanted to say is, does it make sense to provide support to a KCP release that's based on Kubernetes release that has reached end of life? So I think this is another point to think of that we didn't discuss, because at the end, KCP is Kubernetes. Kubernetes has very strict 12 months policy. If it goes out of policy, then yeah, you lose support from Kubernetes. There's nothing much we can do about, even though we have a fork. So I don't think that we can do something about that. And want to say one more thing quickly, but I think this is enough for now.
Yeah, I don't want to pollute water with the kube policies and out of support for now. It's, I think, small steps. if we can agree at something, if we can keep the releases consistent, after 3-6 months, we can revisit what next can be improved in the release process. Like, we could raise all the topics in the world related to release engineering, and we'll do this for like 2 months, but like, we need to start somewhere smaller.
Yeah. Okay, with all the points being heard, I think we're in a good spot to maybe vote if we want to do N-X or if we want to do time-based support policies, because I think we're all on the same page that we need to have some sort of more transparent support policy, guideline, whatever. Insert the text document. Name that you want to.
To be fair, oh sorry, I jumped in. Christoph raised the hand.
Are we then all, including me, prepared to triage bugs in like KCP 029 and figure out what's wrong there? Can we actually provide like real support for these versions? Or should we say?
I'm not like this again. Too much like small steps. Like I just want to have answer to the questions. Like if the next big CVE hits, like do I go and backport it to the 5 KCP releases, or we say like N-2 9 months? That's the line. We do that. Like I'm not. We do how we do things now. We try to be better than yesterday, and tomorrow we'll be trying to be better than today. But like, let's not open this can of worm stuff. Like, not yet.
I wanted to reduce the amount of work we potentially have to do by having potentially tiered support and say, okay, only the latest one gets support and the others get backports for security fixes only.
I would be up for that.
Mm-hmm. Right, because do we have the capacity to do actual support? Probably not, but we do want to keep things secure, at least.
I honestly like this stuff. Like we support latest, be backport, critical fixes. That's it. Marco?
Yeah, so I wanted to comment about topic. For Simon, I would keep it easy. Now I know that this is me who proposed this, but what I heard in a lot of cases is that it should be time-based if you don't have the stable release schedule. So I wouldn't go into voting and stuff like that. I would just keep it with that then, so we don't, spend too much time on that. It's not worth it. That's my 2 cents. And for what Christoph brought up, I would say like maybe first 6 months is what we have provide bug fixes for, only bug fixes and only critical bug fixes, and security fixes, which might include dependencies as well. And then after 6 months, we only do the vulnerabilities in KCP itself. So that would be my idea of the policy.
I agree. I just wanted to pose a follow-up question. Do we do that across the entire KCP dev organization for all components in the same with the same policy, or do you want different approaches depending on the component?
I would propose keep it simple for now, because this leads to the next thread. We had this very long discussion on Slack where we said like, okay, how we do this? I don't want to say that word starting with M, which might be maintenance or might be not. Like, how do we do releases for other related repositories when we cut a KCP release? And we said, we're gonna cut the version releases once we do a KCP release too, just to get the ball rolling, update the dependencies, basically. Like, I don't know, just add the name of the release.
Mm-hmm.
That worked and didn't in our recent release. It didn't because we needed to do a release candidate for sure. That's another topic. We're gonna need to start doing dosifying. I don't even want to discuss if we should or should not. Like, it's post-mortem kind of things. We didn't, and it broke. But if we do this, we're gonna end up in a better place with a versioning and releasing of all the other components. But for now, maybe stick with KCP only, and we'll see if whatever repos brings in time. But if you get a vulnerability, yes, we backport. Like, yeah. Marco?
It was Simon who had it, but yeah, I would also say KCP only for now. Different projects means different release cycles and different ways of releasing. Let's test this out for KCP, and then we can decide what we're going to do with other projects.
Cool. So the sum up is basically we say feature support for latest, backports, releases up to 9 months, basically something like that.
Yeah, so this is how I drafted it up. If it's fine for everyone, maybe a quick show of like thumbs up or raised hands now, if that's
Yeah.
fine.
And
Okay.
we still have this aspiration releases each and every 3 months, every basis, and that basically brings us to N-2. But yes, I agree. This leaves open doors to some other fixes and releases.
Yeah, I think it also gives us the flexibility if we say, oh, a release is really necessary for something, and it is a feature release, we can just put it out there and it's fine for us, and it doesn't like throw off an older release because it falls off a truck suddenly. Marco, go ahead. Marco, you still have your hand raised. Go ahead.
And I didn't unmute. Okay. I shared 2 links on the chat. This is for Kubernetes. They have a really good policy, in my opinion. Maybe if you can open the second link very quickly and show it, because I think I would like something similar for KCP. Basically, what they say, let's see, will be, yeah. There's like, what kind of PRs are good for cherry picks? Like security fixes, regression fixes, critical bug fixes, and eventually Go update and stabilizing tests. And this is pretty much it. So only critical stuff is candidate for cherry picking, and that's it. If it is not critical, yeah, I think that would be good enough, and I would start with something like that initially, maybe even copy something like that, and use it as a starting point.
Yeah, I really like this idea. So basically, this would be this part, right? Backport, fixes, applying to the following categories. And I make this. Yeah, right. So that would be it. So everything that's listed in here qualifies, right, for backport, and everything else not, or qualifies for a cherry pick. And I've linked that specific headline.
Yeah. And the last topic which I want to say, like the release stuff, like I don't want again to us to go into this full-blown release engineering, like 2 weeks release candidate after that start. Like I think we should at least do release candidates for KCP and try to bump them in KCP operator. That's the single downstream, which I think for now is a bit sensitive. Just to make sure that if a RC and a KCP works fine in KCP operator, we are more confident to cut the release, because this time it broke us down, and we'll learn more as we go. So that's the only thing for a current concern about release candidates. Marco?
I agree with that. My only wish for that would be that we also create release branch with the first RC, so that we can test things like publishing bot and set up everything ahead for .0 to save some time on that and like be sure that stuff is working as it should be.
Yeah, I slightly disagree. Bumping or making an RC and bumping in the operator would not have caught the issue we had at all. The issue was that we just didn't test the scenario. and just bumping the version doesn't help. The operator already has canary tests that run constantly. Well, not constantly, but they run on pull requests against KCP main branch. So all we need to do is technically trigger an E2E canary job in the operator and see if it works against the current main, and have tests that cover all the possible scenarios.
Okay, I think I'm missing something. We can take this offline, but I think realities was there was a gap. We didn't quote it. Like not.
Yeah, because the Deca production example we have does something that none of the E2E tests in the operator do. So no matter what KCP version you had, you would have never caught it.
Yeah. No, it's makes sense.
I have nothing against RCs. RCs are fine. I just want to dispel the thought that doing this might catch some issue.
If we had the
More
test
test.
cases.
But running the operator test somehow before the release, that might be always a good thing to do. I don't know how we could automate that with Quao. I think GitHub Actions, it would be simpler. But having this as a pre-release, that might help.
Yeah.
Somehow.
But yeah, that's it's just more, I think, for information. Like we should try to test better before cutting release.
Marco.
Yeah, I'm commenting to Nilo's comment about testable reference architecture. I wouldn't really agree with that, because I think that KCP releases is fairly cheap, in a mean that they're easy to cut. It's mostly you cut the GitHub tag and you're done with it. It's not anything like Kubernetes or something like that. And I think from the cloud native community, especially Kubernetes, people actually try RC releases, especially when you give them binaries or something like that. So given that they're cheap and there's chance that someone might actually try them, I don't see why we shouldn't do that.
I would also, from the perspective of load testing, for example, which maybe is then close to the reference architecture. I know there's some stuff we would change to make it a reference architecture. It would also be beneficial to have RC releases, because we could just put them essentially through the load test if we see like we have features that make sense. Yeah, so Nilo, go ahead.
The reason I said that is because I don't think that we have enough users that are, let's call it, eager enough to be on the edge to actually get a reasonable output out of doing release candidate releases. Because if we had, like, I don't know, let's say 50 people that we knew are actually using KCP, and 10 of them are actually on the latest tag and are actually doing stuff, and that have a test architecture, a test deployment where they can deploy this and give us feedback, then I would say, yeah, let's do this immediately with the next release. But we don't. We have users, but some of them are on 0.29 or 28. They're not going to, oh yeah, a release candidate, let's go. That's why I'm saying if we do this, then we do not gain anything from that unless we know that we are getting feedback. And that's exactly why I'm saying we need some way that at the very least emulates production. And load tests, I think, are a good argument for that. The reference architecture is a good argument for that. Platform mesh could be an argument for that. We'd have to see how easy it would be to get the RCs into there. But that's why I said, hey, let's not take release candidates as a safeguard if we know that we most likely won't get feedback out of that. That's my... But Simon.
Yeah, my counterpoint to this would be a little bit that we don't know what users do. So it's always difficult to say if there's not someone out there that's even maybe trying bleeding edge main versions or something. So I think we shouldn't assume, and by not having it, we certainly don't give people the opportunity in general. So I guess it's a trade-off of how much effort it is, but I agree currently with the sentiment that the effort seems manageable from like an outside perspective. Marco, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say something similar. Basically, I think from many cases so far, we learned that we don't know what people are doing, so we shouldn't assume. If it is like 1 hour, maybe 2 hours of efforts, then I think we should do that. Like it's not a lot of time that we are spending on this. And something that has been missed in this is that by doing RC, we are testing the release process. We are testing the release pipeline. So we know that by the time we are ready to cut .0, we know that it is going to work. And I think this is important as well, because otherwise you might run into the situation that you cut .0 and you figure out that release pipeline is not working. And then you're going to cut .1, .2, .3 until you fix it, which is not ideal. And it is better to handle this by doing RC instead. Christoph.
Yes, still kind of the same question. If we decide to do a release candidate now for KCP, do we intend that there is some time that passes between the RC and the final release, like a week? And would that mean that when we get the idea, hey, we should make another release, oh no, now we have to wait 1 week because first we have to make the RC. Remember, guys, i.e., will this just delay us? Because we don't have a release schedule. We kind of release whenever we feel like it. If we now plan for 1 week of RC phase, are we aware that that might, quote unquote, delay a release? Marco.
I would do it very simple and do it feeling based. Maybe for .0, leave like 3 or 4 days and that's it. And only do RCs for .0s. So not patch releases or something like that.
Yes.
We, cut for maybe 5 days before .0 up to 5 days. And that's it. You're muted, MJ.
Let's wrap it up. I think let's not overcomplicate too much. I think we agreed the main point. Let's move to the next one.
Okay, so sorry, before we close this, there's 2 things I want to quickly mention. So we have a to-do here, which is create the thing. So who will take it up? I think this is the only one thing that's left. We need to assign people to do the things because we've made great decisions, but they come with some follow-ups.
So this is just documenting in our somewhere README and that's it. So yeah, I can do that.
Down. And then I guess here someone has to create a ticket, right? Down here.
Oh.
Let's see who is this. So who? Maybe someone else now who wants to pick this up.
No,
please.
the release candidates, like for me, it's more like a feeling too, in a way. Like if we're cutting a release, we know that platform mesh is waiting. We tag RC, we throw it over the fence to them. We test it. We give a thumbs up. We do that.
All right. So
it's more like I don't want us to sign on something which basically is like rule, because we know sometimes the releases and rebases are so smooth there's nothing breaking. Sometimes we know that we spend blood and sweat rebasing and things might break down. It's like it should be a fluid process. And I agree with Christoph saying like, oh, this will delay us 3 days. If I can get feedback in 2 hours, I should be able to cut the next release after 3 hours. But the main point is, let's use the RC candidates there. And for people on the community, if you're willing to test those things, come forward, because this helps us in the stability too.
Fine by me. So I guess there will not be an official RC process. I guess it's just general. We're gonna keep it free flowing. Okay. Okay. Next topic is by Christoph. Let's move on.
Yay, let's make it complicated again. Okay, just clear everything up. So in the KCP operator, I unfortunately made a bunch of mistakes when creating the Kubernetes naming scheme. So for example, if you have a shard that's called foo and a virtual workspace that's called foo, both are trying to create the certificate named foo server, for example. And this affects virtual workspaces, cache servers, and unfortunately also shards. I tried to remedy this and come up with a Kubernetes naming scheme where there cannot be any conflicts anymore, but this would mean moving certificates around. That might be doable, but then also reconfiguring every deployment to use new secrets and new objects. And that means every component needs to restart. Temporarily, a component might need a CA bundle instead of a dedicated single CA because it needs to temporarily understand multiple CAs. And this is a whole lot of effort to keep maybe 3 or 4 production KCP setups out there live. So over the last week, I've tried to come up with a plan on how this could be done, and I just can't. The amount of effort we would need to do to step-by-step migrate these existing KCPs is just, I don't trust myself to come up with a solution here that actually works. I could do this, or I could see this be doable if we allow ourselves to at least restart the entire KCP setup once at the same time and just shut everything down and restart everything. Then I think this is doable. Other than that, I just don't see a good way of migrating a KCP. So yeah, I'm kind of begging here that we lower our standards and yeah, say it's okay. We shut down KCP once. Simon.
Just for my understanding, so basically, if I'm the owner of a KCP instance, what would happen is I would update my operator. I would have to calculate in a downtime, essentially, during which my KCP is not available. The operator, though, does all the magic for me, I guess, of all the migration. And then at some point after the downtime, I have the new shiny KCP up and ready to go. That to me sounds perfect. Oh, sorry, yeah, Nilo, go ahead.
And any kube config that you basically extracted out of the control plane will also have to be reissued and transported to wherever it is being used.
No, I don't think so. Not with the that's a weird term nobody will understand. Not with the version 1.5 scheme where we keep the root CA and everything alive. With that, we only recreate the serving certs, like maybe, the cache server CA will be recreated, but that's only used internally, so that's okay. But only the serving certificates should change. Existing kube configs should continue to work.
Okay, that's then only for the tentative V2.
Yeah. Yeah, in V2, the naming scheme was just, anyway, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter now. Okay, perfect. Yeah, then it's way less intrusive than what I would have thought.
Yeah.
For me, it's perfect. So yeah, go ahead, MJ. MJ, go ahead.
Is it possible to have it in the same code base? Like, can I do this upgrade the operator and I swap like naming schema V1 to V2 and it just does the restart for me?
Yes. It's not yet implemented, but I've extracted the naming schema. It's just an interface that you implement. There are like 2 different implementations. I also have a third one for testing in E2E tests, where we just use chaos names to ensure that nothing is hard-coded by accident anywhere. So yeah, changing the naming schema, the PR is open for that, where you can just, via command line flag or whatever have you, you could even have a field or an annotation on your root chart, what naming scheme you want to use. Question is just, do we want to then keep that forever?
No, I was thinking more like a V2 is a opt-in in one version, and after that it becomes default. Like, not forever. I just don't want to go through the complicated procedures. I just want to upgrade operator, flip the flag, which becomes enabled by default in the next release, something like that.
Sure, but all you would do is basically prolong the pain. Right? Your KCP setup might grow, and the more it grows, the more painful the migration might be to shut everything off. But yeah, sure. That is probably to achieve.
What I want to have is I want to have controlled pain, meaning I install the operator, I upgrade it. I know that this operator now will do the V2 schema migration. It's like it upgraded the KCP like to 132, everything is happy, then I update this one single Helm value, initiates the restart, revamps everything. And that's it basically.
That is, I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah. Like as long as it's one liner in the docs, like that's the user experience I want.
Yeah, that's, yeah. In the E2E test, that's already working that way.
No, it sounds perfect to me. Like we put a little disclaimer that downtime is expected. That's about it. Sounds good to me.
So just for the people, we've been discussing this so much and so long, and Christoph spent so much time in looking for better ways to do that. And we know it's a problem, so cut
Yes.
cord sooner than later and get it over it, basically, type of thing.
There's still a naming conflict that could arise, but the naming conflict that could arise is more or less like academic. If you have a root shard that is called something 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 dash shard, and you have a shard object that's just called something 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 without the dash shard suffix, then you could have a conflict. I would consider this academic. Who has a root shard called foo shard and a shard called foo? And we can catch this in the reconciler easily and just refuse to reconcile this because it would lead to conflicts. There can't be any KCP setup out there where this conflict already exists, because it would break things. So this would be non-interruptive to anyone. But that's the concession we make to kind of keep the root CA and all that stuff alive. Yeah. Complicated topic. I hope I roughly explained what's going on here. I have lots of diagrams printed out that I can show. Not helping.
It helps that you've been chatting about this for the last 2 weeks.
Babbling about. Cool. So I assume that the short downtime of the entire KCP setup is acceptable, and that it will be very trivial to just flip between the naming schemes that the operator uses. Yeah, that is achievable in human time. And then we learn to think ahead before you invent naming schemes for Kubernetes objects. This all started because back in the day I installed Prometheus and I ended up with a volume that was called Prometheus Server DB. And so I wanted to avoid that and I unfortunately fucked it up. Oh, sorry. Anyway, thanks for your time. I yield.
All right. Then this would be the last topic. If there are no last minute topics, I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day. And see you soon.
Is there any no other topics? Like open floor? Looks like no.
So we want to have another discussion about Helm chart versioning. You keep
No,
flame going. That's not.
This is not on recording.
All right. Have a nice day, guys.
Yep.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.